This week's blog post is the third in my series of favorite recommendations from 2023. It covers architecture and museums. In 2023, I emailed 215 art-related items to supporters of my Sunday recommendations list. This week, I'm presenting my favorites in architecture and in museums. In architecture, I have three top picks. These are in no particular order. The first is Robert Adams' Scion House State Dining Room, Great Hall, and Long Gallery, 1762 to 69. It occurred to me that I didn't have an image of the sort of rooms Jane Austen's characters walk around in, or Georgette Heyer's. I'm giving you a link to an article with excellent photos of 5 rooms in Scion House, the London home of the Dukes of Northumberland. The house has been the ducal home for more than 400 years, almost since it was built in the Italian Renaissance style on the site of medieval Scion Abbey. But now and then every grand old house needs an update. In the 1760s, Robert Adam was called in to freshen up 5 rooms. Adam and his brother James were the most famous of a family of architects who are credited with creating the style of the Adam brothers. They insisted that interior and exterior design be integrated and that interiors should have a unified scheme that included walls, ceilings, floors, furniture, and fixtures. Having traveled extensively to visit Roman ruins, Robert and James Adams chose to promote the neoclassical style over the then fashionable Baroque and Rococo. They also introduced curved walls, domes, elaborate plasterwork, and bright colors. As Sutton puts it, quote, Adam created rooms that had never been seen before, rich, delicate, ingeniously shaped, articulated by such devices as columnar screens across apses, molded pilasters, mirrors, and plasterwork on walls and ceilings, end quote. That's from Sutton's Western Architecture. In the 1770s, Robert and James Adams published an illustrated book of their designs that made their work known throughout Europe. The Adams style was popular from the 1760s to the mid-1790s for upper and middle-class residences in England, Scotland, Russia, and the U.S., where it was known as the Federal style. Jane Austen heroines would certainly have seen interiors resembling these, if somewhat less elaborate. For more on the building boom in England during the Industrial Revolution, which helped the Adam brothers prosper, see the link in the blog post. Another of my top picks is Edwin Luton and Gertrude Jekyll, Gardens at Hestercombe House, 1904 to 6. Hestercombe House dates to the early 16th century, but its current gorgeous garden is Edwardian, the work of a partnership by 2 leading participants in the arts and crafts movement. Luton's was a highly respected architect of English country houses and public buildings in the traditional style. At Hestercombe, he designed the bold shapes that give the garden its structure. Jekyll, who developed the planting strategy, was famous for her use of color and texture, which were influenced by J.M.W. Turner and the Impressionists. Indeed, Jekyll was chiefly interested in painting until her eyesight began to fail in the 1890s. At that point, she switched to gardening. And the third of my top picks, Dankmar Adler and Louis Sullivan, Trading Room of the Chicago Stock Exchange, 1893 to 94. This was the main trading room from the original home of the Chicago Stock Exchange. When the Adler and Sullivan Exchange was demolished in 1972, this room was relocated to the Art Institute of Chicago. Sullivan designed one building for the 1893 Columbian Exposition, the Transportation Building, whose arch is very reminiscent of the entrances to the stock exchange, which you can see on the far left. The Transportation Building was one of the few major structures at the exposition that was not designed in the classical style, but like all the others, it has long since been demolished. Okay, under architecture, the runners-up, 3 works. Tim Fu, Future Nouveau, house design, possibly from 2023. I love Art Nouveau architecture, but I'm sure the originators, circa 1890 to 1910, were never able to conceive something like Tim Fu did with Midjourney and DAL2 SD post-processing. I've given you an article that has more photos. in the blog post. Another runner-up, Horace Walpole's Strawberry Hill, 1749 to 97. In 1757, a mere 2 years after Winckelmann's famous essay promoting Greek sculpture, Edmund Burke published a philosophical inquiry into the origin of our ideas of the sublime and beautiful. Burke was the first to distinguish the beautiful, well-formed, pleasing, from the sublime, which he says has power to compel and destroy us, overtake the rational mind, and trigger self-examination. Burke's essay is one of the roots of the Romantic movement in painting. In architecture, Romanticism takes the form of imitation of earlier styles, often, as at Strawberry Hill, of Gothic cathedrals and castles. In 1764, Horace Walpole, who designed and lived in Strawberry Hill, published one of the notable proto-Romantic novels, The Castle of Otranto. Can't say I recommend it, but if you're interested in the origins of Romanticism, it makes fascinating reading. A quote from it. And then the figure, turning slowly round, discovered to Frederick the fleshless jaws and empty sockets of a skeleton wrapped in a hermit's cowl. "Just protect me!" cried Frederick, recoiling. "Deserve their protection," said the spectre. And the last of the runners-up in architecture, Beauport, the Sleeper McCann House, which dates to 1907 to 1934. This is the home/showcase of an interior designer in Gloucester, Massachusetts. I published 2 blog posts on it, and images of this house also turned up in my favorite photos for 2023. And the final section for this week is on museums. I have 2 top picks, and they are very different institutions. The first is the Worcester Art Museum in Worcester, Massachusetts. I have done 7 posts on European and American portraits in the Worcester Art Museum, and I have so much more material. But who knew I'd visit so many fascinating museums this year that I'd fall behind on doing my blog posts about them. The other museum that I wanted to recommend again is the Clark Art Institute, a great museum in the wilds of Western Massachusetts. I've published 6 blog posts on it so far, covering favorite works from the 15th to 19th centuries, and I plan to finish with 3 or 4 more in February. Meanwhile, next week we will have favorite recommendations of 2023 in music, film, and decorative arts. Just a quick summary of what I did in 2023. At the Resurrecting Romanticism Conference in Spartanburg, South Carolina, in October 2023, I gave a talk on Romanticism in painting, an hour and a quarter, and another on painting at the 1893 Columbian Exposition in Chicago, half an hour. I also participated in a panel discussion, Nurturing the New Romantics. These will eventually be available as videos, and when they are, links will be on my books and essays page. Subscriptions from supporters are also helping me work on 2 books that will appear in 2024. One is Getting More Enjoyment from Paintings You Love, a companion volume to Getting More Enjoyment from Sculpture You Love. And the other is Timeline 1700 to 1900, a prequel to my timeline 1900 to 2021. DianeDurante.com has hundreds of posts on sculpture, painting, architecture, and my other obsessions. To join the Sunday Recommendations email list, visit the URL that's on the screen or email me. And you can say, "Well done, Diane," or support my work and receive rewards by means of the tip jar on DianeDuranteWriter.com. As always, thank you for listening.